Jacko here with another video trying to change the way that we breathe to improve the way we feel, move and perform. So welcome back, or if this is the first time here, welcome, and click subscribe if you haven't yet, if you're interested in improving the way you breathe, because it can change literally everything that we potentially do. And in this video today we're talking specifically about the benefits potentially, or pros and cons of breathing through one nostril. There is plenty of research out there about the difference between breathing through the right nostril compared to breathing through the left nostril, that relating to the contralateral, so the opposite hemisphere of the brain, and how when you breathe through the right nostril, it's a little bit more related to sympathetic tone, and then the left nostril, when you breathe in through that, it's a little bit more towards the parasympathetic side of things. But that isn't exactly or necessarily the point I'm trying to make in this video. What we're kind of trying to look at is some of the sports performance or exercise performance benefits we can get from breathing through our nose. Can we use single nostril breathing to improve our recovery? And this is one of the interesting topics or things that I want to be able to cover in this video. Equally, we've got the opportunity during single nostril breathing, what's happening in terms of biomechanics and training of the diaphragm. So that is what we're going to cover in this one. So we know in terms of breathing, when we switch from mouth breathing to nose breathing, that nose with those two smaller little holes provides about 50% more resistance to our breathing, and in a good way, rather than just sucking air easily in through the mouth. That resistance slows down our breathing and helps increase oxygen uptake by up to 10 to 20%. So slowing down our breathing, we know is an important process of getting oxygen in more efficiently to the body. Okay, so that's one element of it. Now, if we start to, and there's other videos you can that you can see where we talk about like the benefits of nasal breathing. I'll put a link in for that somewhere here, or I'll put it in the notes, in the description as well. So taking that principle a little bit further, if we, rather than just go from mouth breathing to nose breathing, but we actually go to one nostril, we've reduced then the space by another 50%. So the resistance is going to be harder, or going to be more difficult to actually get air in. What is the muscle that's working against that resistance? Bing, that's right, no, not your abs, your diaphragm. So providing more resistance and load to the diaphragm, meaning it having to work a little bit harder. And you go, well, do I want to make my diaphragm work harder when I'm trying to recover? Well, this is one of the first points to make. Training in any respect is we're trying to provide a progressive overload. Just like if you're trying to get stronger at say deadlift or bench press or something, we're going to add some additional load to the bar over a series of weeks to build up that strength. And this is an opportunity to train the diaphragm strength. And just like any muscle in the body, when we increase the cross-sectional area, we increase the strength of a muscle, the diaphragm is no different. It's a muscle as well. And when we train it for strength, we help it to improve its functionality, and also then the knock-on effect on its endurance, so it can keep working for longer for those of us that are looking for exercise and sports performance benefits. So single nostril breathing is one way we can add more resistance to our breathing with just literally blocking one nostril to allow the diaphragm to work a little bit harder. So it's a training effect that in the long term is going to help build up some strength and endurance that's going to help your breathing and not just your recovery. But in the short term, those of you are thinking, well, if I block one nostril, breathing is going to be harder. Like, yeah, exactly. So in the short term, in a recovery period, so this is where step one, I would say, for people to just have a go. Once your training session is finished and your breathing is really difficult and you're like, I need to regulate my breathing back down. What is it like to breathe through one nostril? It's probably going to be really a little bit more difficult. You feel your diaphragm working. You can even try it now when you're breathing through one nostril. Feel how your diaphragm moving downwards and out, has to try to work harder to get that air to come in through that one nostril. You've provided some more resistance. It's going to be a bit noisier. So in the short term, in that little space, then when you're actually doing it for the first time, it's going to feel harder. But you then get two things: a knock-on effect when you let go, and you switch back to two nostrils. It feels like we get this like post-potentiation effect, effectively, like if we do like a complex in strength and conditioning training where we'd have like a heavy barbell squat followed by some depth jumps or some plyometric effect, where the system is used to lifting that load in like a heavy squat, and we take that load off and it's still firing the same, and we get this like feeling of like almost feeling lighter. It's a bit like that with the nose. You've provided some resistance, the body starts to get used to that, and then you take it away and almost it feels easier and freer to breathe in through both those two nostrils. So that's one element. So the second thing is that that single nostril is going to slow down the breathing even more. It's going to create even a little bit more of air hunger just automatically. And that air hunger, as long as we can manage it, and this is going to be my third point, but that air hunger is going to mean that like we're getting a bigger buildup of carbon dioxide. You're able to therefore train the body's ability to tolerate carbon dioxide. And remember, a buildup of carbon dioxide and being able to increase our tolerance to it and decrease our sensitivity to carbon dioxide means we can slow down our breathing better, we can recover better in the longer term, and because we're getting a better oxygen delivery from the blood into the cells with a higher presence of carbon dioxide. No, that's known as the Bohr effect. Again, there are some of the early videos I've done cover that in a little bit more detail. But just know that that development of air hunger that we get through one nostril, again, in the short term, isn't making recovery better, but in the longer term, when you practice that, your breathing for recovery is going to be increased. So this is the third thing, is then like, if you try to do this when it's too difficult for you, then you're adding too much of a load. Go back to the deadlift analogy or the bench press analogy. If you can't lift 100 kilos, but you just keep putting 100 kilos on the bar and trying to lift it, you're not going to make any progress. So don't try to start doing something that's too difficult. To start with, can you breathe through the nose if you're used to breathing through the mouth? That will be enough of a challenge. But as your nose starts to adapt and as your system starts to deal with carbon dioxide better and starts to improve the efficiency of the delivery of oxygen, then things are going to start to feel better breathing in and out just through the nose. And if you want to carry on continuing, then we need to find some ways to progressively produce a little bit of overload. And this is one of those examples. And it's a great way to practice, or opportunity to practice it at the end of a training session. Spending a couple of minutes breathing through one nostril when your breathing is quite heavy. Use that as a chance to train your ability to slow down. You're breathing larger breaths and less breaths per minute is more efficient. Again, done another video on that separate to this. But we lose less air to dead space when we have less breaths per minute, but we need to increase the size of the breath proportionally. So our ability to do that whilst doing it through one nostril is like a training effect that we're going to benefit from in the longer term. So that then when you're doing your 5K PB, or you're playing rugby or football or whatever it is that you're doing, you're not going to be breathing through one nostril when you're trying to perform maximally, but you've trained yourself that you can deal with breathing through one nostril. Strength of diaphragm is increased, your ability to tolerate carbon dioxide is increased, and therefore when you actually are just allowing yourself to breathe through the nose, breathe through two nostrils, it's going to feel great because you've built up that training effect. And then when you're working like at absolute max, and maybe you actually are breathing in and out through the mouth, you've developed this ability that it's going to feel like when you open the mouth up, it's going to feel like you're just like air's just gushing in and is just totally easy. So there's some of I wanted to just iterate some of the important reasons why it can be beneficial, but also highlight how it is actually working. So just simply breathing through one nostril isn't going to make you recover better from that exercise that you're currently doing, if that makes sense. It's a training effect that's going to build up over a period of time. Ways to get it into your training then, as I've already mentioned, just straight after as part of your recovery. Once you're breathing, wants to be like that because you've just done like a training set or you've just finished a hard training session. Try to regulate your breathing. Larger breaths from the diaphragm. So they're larger and bigger but slower, meaning we take less breaths per minute. It's better for our recovery, but equally breathing through one nostril, you're dealing with that air hunger that's going to come up because it's slowing it down even more because there's only one nostril coming through, or the space. And then also you're training the strength of the diaphragm because the diaphragm is going to have to work a little bit harder during that period. As you get better, it could be that you do it during a session that you're in control and you're able to work on the recovery aspect. So just say, for example, you're doing a gym session and you're doing a few sets where you've got 2 or 3 minutes rest or recovery, or even if you've just got like a minute's recovery rest in between your training sets, then the first sort of 30 seconds or the first minute could be done through a single nostril, then you let go and you finish the rest of your recovery through two. The added little side-on benefit of this is that when you go and switch to single nostril breathing, I guarantee your brain will the amount of focus you'll have on your breathing, and almost even a little bit of mindfulness and meditation that's just going to come to all your focus and attention is going to be on your breathing and on your recovery, rather than just your mind wandering all over the place and thinking about what's going to happen next. It's going to very much center you in what you're doing at the current time, which during training, or literally training the brain and mind to be able to focus and concentrate on a single task that's happening right here, right now, is a great way to improve our focus and concentration as well. So that's like an added little bonus on top. So if you have never even tried breathing through the nose yet, go for nasal breathing over mouth breathing. Once you start to get comfortable with your nasal breathing, then try a little bit of single nostril breathing at the end of a training session. See how that feels, see what the difference is like, and also like just have a little bit of a practice of it, like what is it like just to do when you haven't even trained at all, just to breathe in and out of one nostril. Just notice how it's louder, notice how you feel the diaphragm working a little bit, and notice how it slows down and creates a little bit more air hunger. So you could practice initially just away from training, and then what is it like in a recovery at the end of a run or something like that, and then as you get better you can start to implement it into like interspersed within your training session when you've got little breaks, depending on the type of stuff you're doing. But if you're doing like interval stuff or gym stuff where you've got sets and specific rest periods, there's opportunities to work through it there. So I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. If you've tried this, let me know how you get on with it. If you've never experienced it before, just let me know where you're at with your breathing, and how you're finding that. We're getting some amazing reports from people like who have switched to just simply switching to nasal breathing during exercise, finding it more difficult at first, but once those adaptations take place, commonly sort of 6 to 12 weeks, then like PBing on 5k runs and things like this. The science and the rationale behind the importance of improving the way that we breathe, and nasal breathing is like a massive part of that. Just like it's all there for us to see, and we want to try and spread that and show that, because not only are you going to like perform better, you're going to feel better as well, and that's so important for us to enjoy our bodies and enjoy our training and enjoy the world out there that we're doing. I'm pointing over towards the window because the world's out there. So I've been Jacko. Keep it nasal until next time, and I look forward to hearing from you.